welcome everyone. This is State Representative Brad Halbrook with another edition of our Tuesday night Illinois Freedom Caucus Roundtable. And we've got a full house here tonight, so welcome everyone. Gentlemen, before we get started, we've got a little veto session recap and looking forward to the lame duck session. You know, we've kind of tried to explain what veto session is over the last, every year we kind of talk about it when we're out with constituents or on these live streams, but I think they really need to rename it to gut and replace session. It seems like that's what we've done the whole time we were there. So with that, we're pleased to be joined tonight by a newest member of the Illinois Freedom Caucus, Senator Andrew Chesney. Welcome there, Leader Senator Andrew Chesney.
Thank you, Brad.
Yep.
Good to be on board.
Glad you're here. Happy you're here. Also, we've got Leader Representative Adam Niemerg. Welcome, Adam.
Good evening, everybody.
And not to be outdone by Leader Representative Dan Calkins from Decatur.
Good evening. Great to be here. Looking forward to this one.
And from southwestern part of the state, Leader Representative David Freese.
Good evening. And we've talked about this. It's Supreme Leader.
Supreme Leader. Well, you should change the name on the bottom of your screen there, so I get. I got a lot going on over here. It's a lot going on as we head into trying to recover from veto session / gut and replace session and head into Thanksgiving and just in anticipation of what's coming on January the 2nd. And the guy that keeps our trains on the track and keeps them running on time, Director Colin Mosley of the Illinois Freedom Caucus. Welcome, Director Mosley.
Hey, good to be here for the leadership meeting.
And to that point, let's get into the leadership meeting. And I am going to try to pull up our slides here. Let's see if we can make this work as we kind of give everyone kind of a recap. And I'm going to change the layout here just momentarily, or I may ought to go back. Gentlemen, so as we get into the first slide, we're going to talk about kind of 3 different bills that we dealt with here. Maybe, if the technology will work. Here we go. So the first bill up is SB 3410. This is our first example of a gut and replace bill. It started out as a gambling disorders bill. And gentlemen, I'll just throw it up. It had a dozen plus sunsets in it, sunset extensions on different bills. But then also the kind of the big issue was the unemployment insurance speed bump, if they call it, that extended it from January 25th to January 25 to January of 2027. Gentlemen, I'll throw it up if anybody wants to kind of discuss what that was all about and the different components of SB 3410.
I'll go ahead and jump in, Brad. So for those that are watching it, the gut and replace was actually, put together under former Speaker Madigan. This was a way for him to continue to shake down his donors. And so they would create all these odd sunsets. And so some of them may make sense. Some of them you kind of scratch your head and wonder, why are they even doing sunsets on this? And then for those also watching, you might want to know why we do gut and replace bills. So why the title looks completely different than the text that we're actually debating and voting on. Well, some of that's to create some confusion. Some of it's just bad planning. But the sunset provisions is something that former Speaker Madigan, who is now indicted and likely to be convicted by a jury of his peers, this was something that was put together over the last, almost half century of sunsets. And it was a way for the lobbyists to have to go back to the legislature and essentially ask for something they've historically had. Now, there was times when the sunset made sense, where they wanted to try something and truly have it sunset. But the sunset provisions that have historically been put in place in the legislature were largely there as a way for Speaker Madigan and the Democrat majority to wield their power and maintain their power and have those same groups come back to them to show the need that they wanted. So that's the reason, I guess, a little bit of context on the historical context on the sunset provisions.
Well, it's a great explanation, Senator Chesney. So it really wasn't maybe a good governance bill, but more of a shakedown type of a thing. I mean, not a good governance bill, but a good governance idea to sunset these government programs, whatever it might be, whether it's just a law or a program, whatever the case might be. It was more just a kind of a shakedown.
Well, the renewal of them were, yeah.
Yeah, the
I mean,
renewals of them were. Yep.
so they would propose a legislation that might have some controversy, but a caveat to get people to vote for it is, well, this is going to sunset in 3 years or 5 years. Invest in kids. And then when these programs start to end, of course, the people that are affected are going to come screaming back to Springfield and lobbying their legislators to extend these programs. So it's kind of, it's an old lawyer friend of mine, so I hope our lawyer here isn't too offended. But a criminal in jail is no longer a customer. So that's why we fight to keep these guys on the street so they can continue to pay their bills. But we have the same thing, as Andrew said. Every 5 years or 3 years, we have to come back and relitigate these programs. And the folks that are affected now become targets, as Mr. Madigan is now famously on trial for shakedowns, for political contributions, favors, whatever it might be. I think, we'll get into this, but I think really the one disappointing part about this bill was the unemployment insurance. That I think everyone agreed that needed the speed bump needed to be pushed down the road because we're making great progress at refilling that fund. But they stuffed it in this omnibus bill in order to get more people to vote for it, rather than do what they've traditionally done in the last few years that we've been there. And that is, it's a standalone bill. It's something that we should pay attention to. It affects every employer in this state. And it's something I think we all would have voted for. But when you stick it in this bill, it's surrounded by bad legislation.
So
Yeah,
point,
we're pretty good about doing stuff like that in Springfield, and I think probably in DC as well. They stuff bad stuff in omnibus bills. You get separate items in there that probably everybody would vote up on, but yet they stick crap in it, and it forces us, to choose on some bad legislation. It's very unfortunate.
So this bill passed 39-17 in the Senate, 74-38 in the House. The hot topic was about the unemployment insurance, and this fund went deeply underwater during the coronavirus, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars actually, and it has recovered to $2 billion, I believe, is the fund balance now.
And Not yet. That's the goal. The goal is to get to 2 billion.
Right. And the speed bump basically would put into some factors that would increase the tax rates on the business and on the employers and decrease the benefits. Do I have it right? That's what the speed bump was about, that they've extended that deadline because the fund is becoming healthy again.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but our overall budget's not.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, just the unemployment trust fund, if you will. Yeah, the other issue was this sunset on this LGBTQ aging commission, and I know there was questions about why do we need a commission on that, and Leader Hoffman just kind of discounted it, said, well, he wasn't on the commission, and then there was a discussion about the cost of this commission, and he felt like or believed that the commissioners were uncompensated, but yet bureaucrats are taking time, right? Somebody's taking time out of their schedule to do this. So there is a cost. We just don't know what it is. I'll just open that up if anybody wants to discuss that for a moment.
Well, Rep. Wilhauer asked the question of the sponsor on the floor, Representative Hoffman, what is the Commission on LGBTQ Aging? And it was like, I'm going to quote Representative Niemerg here because Niemerg has a new catchphrase, the Springfield two-step. I really like that. But, he gave the Springfield two-step. Well, I don't know. I'm not on the commission, and this is just a sunset, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is it's one unnecessary piece of that bill. There are many. But this is the kind of crap we're focused on. Nobody has any answers what the commission does, what they're studying. And so to Brad's point, but there's some bureaucrat somewhere taking time out of their day for the Commission on LGBTQ Aging, because I guess they somehow have to age differently than straight people. I don't know. It's just Springfield waste.
Well, and he talked about the large number of commissions that we have, and I think that's the thing there, Director Mosley, is nobody can explain what these commissions do, and it just fills up the time and space it should be spent probably trying to figure out how to solve problems in the state of Illinois rather than put people on meaningless commissions that go nowhere.
Yeah, like balancing our budget.
Well, yeah, but I mean, what this does, it appeases the special interest group so that the majority that pass this kind of stuff can walk around and, thump their chest. Oh, I'm all for it. We've got this commission, and we've extended the life of it, and it's vote for me because I'm your friend.
Yeah, people feel important serving on those commissions too.
Right. Yeah, it's a resume. I'm on the state commission. Well, what have you done for us?
Right. Gentlemen, let's move on to HB 793, the disabled workers' wages. This is a House bill. Senator Chesney, I think this has actually made it to the Senate last week.
Yeah, it did.
Give us an update on what's going on with that.
Yeah, so it's kind of a split roll call among Senate Republicans. They saw it a little bit differently than I did. Some voted in favor of it. I voted against it. There are workshops for people that are severely disabled. These are people that, are unable to function under normal conditions. And so the federal government allows waivers for people to work below minimum wage. I mean, these people are severely disabled, and they are historically monitored by not only a parent or guardian, but also by the nonprofit facility. And so they create just very small tasks, but very meaningful tasks to these people with disabilities. And this is going to eliminate this sub minimum wage. And it's very, very tailored, very narrow in scope, heavily regulated. And there was no outcry from the parents or guardians whose children's or loved ones were in these programs. The only outcry, this is kind of goes into this kind of this woke legislation, right? These are these feel-good pieces of legislation that are going to have significant impact within communities. And so this passed also with Republican support, because it's easier for a Republican to just vote yes on it than it is to vote no on it and take the time to explain it in the communities why it actually has an impact, a negative impact, and why it's a bad yes vote. And so it's gonna have significant impact in my district and many districts throughout Illinois, that these workshops for severely disabled people are essentially going to close up shop, because the way that they're able to exist is through this sub minimum wage and this kind of piecework type payment program. But now they're going to take these adults, they're going to essentially shift them to an adult daycare and give them very, very little of a meaningful day where they can actually produce something. And so very disheartening, very frustrating. And, we had Republicans that supported this, and you got to kind of scratch your head and ask yourself why. Get into the communities and actually explain it. I know it takes time. It's a little more effort. Everybody's just worried about a mail piece, and they need to be more worried about what's doing right. And I think that a yes vote on this is a complete disservice in our state to the people that everybody argues they care about the most. And this bill will actually hurt the most vulnerable.
I'd like to add to that a little bit. So this bill passed the House a while back. I think it was in late May from what I remember. So it just went over to the Senate. And we had Republican support in the House on it as well. And the frustrating part about that is this bill ended up being watered down. They pushed some language back. They pushed some years back for this to be into place. And if folks can look into this, this is the 14C waiver by the federal government. So with the fact that it was watered down, certain Republicans, not us, said, okay, well, we can get on board because we're part of the discussion, and now it's watered down. And that kind of goes to a big problem in Springfield, that we should just say no. We know what the right thing is to do here. We know that this is going to have a catastrophic impact on our facilities here in the state of Illinois. I guess I have one just outside of my district, and I have family that they go there in Teutopolis. Brad, you have that. I've met many times with those folks, toured that facility many times. Again, I have family that's there. Also, I have Lawrence and Crawford. toured that facility as well. And the people that run these facilities understand what it takes to get the job done, and this isn't going to do it. The reimbursement rates for what these folks do, for example, they wanted to get out and work. And what happens is let's say Hershey and Robinson, Stevens and T-Town, they give contracts to these locations for something to be put together, a widget or whatever it may be, and they understand that it's not going to be put together in the same product line as other places. They're aware of that. But this 14C allows those companies to do this and not take a big loss, and to help the folks that need the jobs, that want to work, that need to feel valuable in the community to do this. When you remove that, you potentially remove those individuals that are saying, hey, we'll have this job, we'll send you this job, because their losses are going to be too much. So it's a situation where this is going to have a detrimental impact. And it is very unfortunate that it had Republican support in the Senate and in the House, because everybody just should have voted no and continued to fight this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. What's so frustrating about this is I think the people that vote yes on this legislation, they have not gone to the facilities. They have not checked these situations out. They have not talked to the people that are working. They haven't talked to the charitable organizations. I have several in my district as well. When talk to the employees, talk to the workers. These programs give these individuals meaningful life skills and something that they can do other than being in an adult daycare. They enjoy the work. They're not demanding $15 an hour. They need the work to give them meaning, and it gives them socialization because they're with other people of similar disabilities. It's sad, but I'm convinced that if anybody would go to these facilities and look what's going on, they would have voted no on this crap.
I spent 25 years in the developmentally disabled world, owning and operating and working closely with workshops, because that's where all of our residents went every day. This is the typical, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. There is so many things baked into this that will not come true. The state is going to make them whole to up their rate. Well, how'd that work out on minimum wage? We passed the minimum wage, and the state promised to make all of these facilities, daycare, the workshops and group homes whole, because they don't set a rate. The state tells them how much they're going to get paid. That didn't happen. You listen to the talk, oh, we're going to go and do these things in the state, and we're going to incentivize companies to keep these programs going. It's not going to happen. This is all some social engineering by some left-wing radicals that think that they know better, and it's a feel good. Oh, we're giving people this living wage. Well, guess what? All of those people that live in a subsidized living, a group home, a SILA, they can only keep, I think, $100. You can pay them $5,000 a month, and it doesn't change one iota their standard of living. They can keep up to $100 a month for their personal expenses. Everything else is paid for by the state. So what are you going to do? You're going to create a situation now where these people are not going to have a job. No company is going to pay somebody $15 or $16 or $18 an hour that produces at a $7 an hour rate. And that's what this is. It's going to fail. 2 years down the road, 3 years, whatever they push this thing out to try to make it palatable to some Republicans. Anybody that voted for this should be ashamed of themselves. And any Republican that voted for this, they need to be a spotlight put on them, because this is a terrible, terrible vote. I put this right up there with no cash bail and taking guns and CEJA and all of that crap. You're right.
Yep. And
Yeah.
something, folks, I think that I want to drive home on this issue, and this is a very serious issue, but whenever Republicans vote for things like this, okay, this goes to a lot of bills I've seen in the last 4 years. We still want to talk about it, but when Republicans put votes on the board, then you have leadership, then you have other Republicans saying, well, don't talk about it because such and such voted for it. And we don't want to don't want to throw anything their way. And it kills off a majority of the conversation that should be had on this. And it's very upsetting because something like this, Republicans should stay completely unified and push back and try to get this stopped. So by kind of, playing the game and watering it down just a little bit and then putting a yes vote on it, that's exactly what the Democrats want. Now you're going to have these facilities are going to lose workers. You're going to have, these areas, they're not going to kick the business to them anymore because the 14C is removed. And you have a very, very serious issue. So I've seen this, Dan brought up, some other pieces of legislation. I've seen it on CEJA. I've seen it on just a plethora of legislation where all of a sudden, hey, so we're talking about it here. And I'm wondering if we'll get kickback from certain Republicans that voted for it because we're talking about it. Well, don't vote for it. It's not our fault. You're the one that pushed your button, not Adam Niemerg. So it's frustrating sometimes, guys.
Right.
You're right.
I think the next bill we're going to talk about is another example of frustration too. Maybe frustration more with the Democrats, but about something that started as an idea to eliminate a tax and then became actually a tax increase. The grocery tax bill that we basically codified this veto session with HB 4636. So, Brad, I don't know, that's where you were going. But
that's exactly where I'm going. So this passed the Senate 47-8. It passed out of the House 72-38. Another gut and replace. It started out as a property tax settlement and valuation bill. A couple of things in here that was discussed on the floor was the tax credits that was in it. And again, the sponsor talk about technical changes to the legislation, and maybe for the most part that's correct. But I think there's kind of some philosophical discussion about the tax credits that were included in this thing, and then about the sales tax that local municipalities can do without referendum. So with that, Jim, I'll just kind of open it up. Anybody wants to take the tax credit issue and kind of talk about the discussion on the floor about that?
Well, just real quick, I get tired of the tax credit debate all the time because we're giving tax credits to certain companies or individuals because they're not financially viable otherwise. Maybe that's a reflection on the company itself. Or you know what? Maybe it's a reflection on our tax system. Maybe we should, give everybody this tax credit. So I get exhausted because I don't get those tax credits.
Well, a couple of the tax credits went to music and musicians. There was some theater tax credits, theater production stuff. And then there was the thing that this is kind of interesting, new terminology, returning citizens. There was tax credits, some jobs tax credits for returning citizens, which is code for persons that were formerly incarcerated.
So, justice. So I sit on restorative justice committee, and that can be that could be a rough one. So in restorative justice, they changed things like offender was changed to justice impacted individual. Now we have returning citizens. So they changed definitions. So guys, we know on the national stage what we saw happen is awesome, but I'm sorry to say we're still fighting this woke dumpster fire with these DEI initiatives here in the state of Illinois, but we'll keep pushing back.
Well, what's interesting, gentlemen, and this may take off on a leg of its own here, but all these tax credits, and this was brought up in the floor discussion that afternoon, Wednesday afternoon. Where was the Invest in Kids tax credit? We can do all these other tax credits, but for some reason, we're not going to talk about Invest in Kids. Probably one of the most impactful. That's going to have impact on kids and families for their entire lives. And
disadvantaged families that everybody in that chamber says that they want to support, then they can't, get on the Invest in Kids Act. Sad.
And folks, the Invest in Kids is simply a tax credit scholarship fund to help underprivileged youth get out of failing schools. And we know that, especially in the Chicagoland, they are failing. So the special interest groups have a tremendous amount of power in Springfield. And on this issue, they have a tremendous amount of power, which is very, very frustrating.
Right. Gentlemen, let's move on here for the sake of time. So lame duck session is scheduled to start January the 2nd. The calendar's out. You can go to ilga.gov. But here's what the first week of January looks like for us as we head into the 8th of January, which will be our inauguration day there at noon. Gentlemen, any discussion here? You guys want? I'll just open this up if anybody has any thoughts about lame duck.
Yeah. Thanks, Brad. Folks, House Bill 5164. This is something I brought up last week in a Facebook Live. This bill passed the House. We all voted no. And now it's up to our newest member, Senator Chesney, to try to block this in the Senate. But House Bill 5164, this is a big one, guys. We see ICE are going to be able to start doing their jobs. We see Tom Holman in there just really getting ready to go. But in Illinois, we see obviously they're trying to circle the wagons on illegal immigration. It's become a very big issue. House Bill 5164 allows folks that have been in the country, and they change it from 6 months to 3 months, to change their name. So any illegal that's here, criminal, whatever, just like in the Lake and Riley, this guy could have changed his name and they wouldn't be able to find him. So they can change their name if they're in the country within 3 months. Furthermore, that documentation becomes impounded from ICE. Okay, so ICE comes here, these folks change their name, and then it becomes impounded. So the federals, the feds, ICE come in, they can't have access to this information. So it's going to be a massive way for the Democrats to hide the illegals here in the state of Illinois, these criminals, these folks that are here illegally. This is a major piece of legislation. So it's House Bill 5164. And I am sure that Senator Chesney will hit his button and debate this bill whenever it comes up in lame duck.
Yeah, I mean, this was the cover up, right? I mean, this first they allow people to break into our country, then they threaten to decertify police officers if they work with federal law enforcement. Now this is the cover up process, and so these are Governor Pritzker's, these are his people that he's going to protect over our Illinois citizens. These are the resources that we should be spending on people that are legally in this country to people that are not legally in this country, and this is again part of this woke, progressive, and dangerous agenda that the Democrats are pushing that will impact every community in Illinois, directly or indirectly, but likely directly, because the numbers that are going to be coming into our state, if this is just the beginning, this is certainly not the end, because all the Midwestern states have started to throttle this back a little bit because they recognize the political problems with this sanctuary state status. The governor has doubled down on it, and he's practically said, you got to come through me. Okay, well, where do you think these illegal immigrants are going to come? Here, Iowa. They're going to go to Illinois because they have all these protections. And who do you think is going to pay for it? Everybody else.
Right, exactly.
Where was LaShawn Ford on this? I mean, he's publicly said that we need to start cooperating with ICE to get these criminals out of our neighborhoods, out of Chicago's neighborhoods, what he's concerned about. Why isn't he standing up and advocating for this? The election saw a really, I think, a swing up in the Cook County, Chicago. And these people are going to pursue this kind of agenda at their own peril. We got a big election in 2 years, and people, I don't think they're going to forget what the Democrats have done to this state, what this governor has done to this state. We go back to the COVID lockdowns and the fraud and the abuse and the people that lost their family member because they couldn't go visit them in a nursing home. They closed your church down. They shut your business down. And then you had government employees defrauding the system, claiming that their business suffered and stealing money, out of the COVID funds. And it goes on and on. They passed unconstitutional laws. They don't care about the law. They don't care about the Constitution. And now they're going to go out of their way to make it very difficult to get criminals out of their neighborhoods up in every city for that matter. But yeah, I think this is going to have a huge, huge, huge reflection on the elections in 2 years.
Right. Yeah, great points, gentlemen. As we move into the closing moments here, we got the slide here. Director Mosley has joined us again with all the places that you work so diligently on to inform and keep everyone out there informed. Director Mosley?
Well, yeah, our Substack, all the things we talk about today, we post routinely to Substack. It's our newsletter. Love for you to read that, and especially going into veto session and lame duck session, because as we're putting out calls to action and witness slip requests and making you aware of what's going on, that's the best place, that and our social media, to keep up to date with us. And of course, as we close out, just for my closing remarks, have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy time with your families. And be thankful for everything, especially that we have a Trump White House coming in 2 months.
Exactly right. And with that, gentlemen, I think we're just going to close out. We've had a good roundtable discussion here tonight. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone that joined us here on the roundtable tonight. Appreciate that. And to everyone out there, please like, share, follow, and subscribe to our content to help us spread the word. What the Illinois Freedom Caucus is all about: truth, logic, and common sense, and conservatism. And with that, gentlemen, let's say happy Thanksgiving and good night, and we'll see you hopefully real soon. Thanks.
Good night, guys.
Happy